Get ready.
Hello, I am Liam Ashcroft and welcome to yet another episode of This is Saturn. Today we'll be looking at an absolute cult hit for the SEGA Saturn brought to us by Sonic Team. Ah yes, Sonic Team. If there were ever a fall from grace as great as thee, I'd be surprised to hear it. Back in the 90s and early 2000s, Sonic Team gave us some truly fantastic titles. I mean, come on, creating a game like Sonic the Hedgehog for the Mega Drive could have been the only thing they did, and that game alone would have sealed their place as legends in the world of video games. But nope, they went on to produce several fantastic titles bursting with charm and personality such as Nights into Dreams and Choo Choo Rocket. Nowadays, Sonic this, Sonic that. If it's Sonic Team in this day and age, it's a Sonic game. Now don't get me wrong, as I mentioned in my Sonic R review, Sonic is my favourite game series of all time, but the loss of imagination at Sonic Team throughout the 2000s was staggering. Even when they did manage to bring a fresh idea to the table in the form of Billy Hatcher for the GameCube, it was a bit shit. Of Sonic Team's various non-Sonic games, one that's become more well known through means such as the All-Stars games and even Phantasy Star Online is Burning Rangers. What is Burning Rangers? Well, let me try to summarise, and a quick warning, things will get spoilery, so take note. The game is set in the far-off year of sometime, where fire is one of the few hazards that actively endangers humans. As such, an elite firefighting unit, the Burning Rangers, is set up to tackle the issue. Of course, this is a Sonic Team game, it's not a simple case of throwing a damp towel on a chip pan fire or something. Rather, you run through areas such as spaceships and shoot blue laser beams to put out fires. Well, you take control of either Shu or Tillis, new recruits of the Burning Rangers, and gear up to kick Fire's metaphorical arse alongside your colleagues Lead Phoenix, Chris Parton, and Big Landman. Big Landman. That is one hell of a name. Later on in the game, a new plot element, character, is introduced in the form of a girl named Aria Klein. From what I can gather, Aria was placed into stasis as she was dying from an incurable disease. At the end of the game, the space station she's on detects a cure has been found on Earth, taking the entire space colony towards Earth to get the cure, leaving the Rangers to stop it. Gee, where have I heard that before? Girl with an incurable disease on a space colony that moves onto a collision course with Earth. To its credit though, Burning Rangers came out before Sonic Adventure 2, obviously being a Saturn game, though I still find it weird how close these particular plot elements are. Anyway, the aim in Burning Rangers is to make it to the end of each stage while putting out fires and saving innocent people trapped in the Inferno. You can get crystals from putting out fires and you'll need them for two reasons. First reason, you need crystals to teleport civilians out of the blaze. Second reason, you need crystals to survive. As long as you have one crystal, you'll be fine. Again with the Sonic similarities, huh? That said, one big difference lies in the level design. This isn't linear platforming, folks, as these levels are huge. You'll certainly have your work cut out for you saving every hostage, though it isn't necessary to save all of them, cruel as that may seem. To assist you in navigating the levels is Chris Parton, who talks to you and tells you where to go for each level as you progress. This was an incredibly innovative feature, and one I can't take advantage of. UK copies of Burning Rangers are pretty damn rare, and often lean to the expensive side, so I picked up the Japanese version for about half the price instead. Unsurprisingly, there's no option for English dialogue, meaning I can't even understand what the navigator's telling me. This being said, Burning Rangers isn't what I'd call import unfriendly. Whilst the levels are large, they have a sensible design to them, and it's often made pretty obvious where to go through colour coding and quick cutscenes. That said, if you intend on finishing these levels quickly, the navigator in the Japanese version won't be much use to you unless you speak Japanese. Gameplay wise, as I mentioned, you play as either Shu or Tillis and fight fires with laser guns. These laser gun things can be charged, which is necessary for some forms of fire. That said, using charged shots, whilst effective, seems to yield less crystals if used, so this encourages you to limit just using charged shots to power through everything, as without those crystals, you aren't saving anyone. One thing to note is that Shu and Tillis seem to control pretty identically in terms of stats. In my research and in the game itself, I found nothing to suggest that these characters have any differences besides appearance and voice. Ah well. The game provides the typical platforming moves. You can run and jump of course, but one cool feature is the back loop. As you travel through the stages, explosions are common, often catching you by surprise. The back loop, however, lets you backflip out of the way of these explosions with a moment's notice. It's a valuable asset to the character's movesets. Jump dashes and evasive rolls are also here, and all in all the ranges are pretty damn versatile. Controlling the characters feels fantastic too. Even through the simple task of running, the characters feel like they have weight to them, and this gives a huge boost to immersion. This great control is only exemplified by the fact the game supports the Saturn's 3D analog pad, making movements more accurate. The game is perfectly playable with a normal pad, but I'd definitely recommend the 3D pad here. Controlling the camera is simple enough. The left and right triggers spin the camera angle. You can also enter a sort of free camera mode that lets you pan the camera about yourself, a pretty cool feature, though one I honestly never use. The camera itself is alright, but sometimes it can get stuck on objects or just get stuck in an awkward way. One of the more noticeable issues with the camera is that sometimes it can work against the controls. Pulling off a back loop can be a pain because the camera seems to mess with the input, and this just results in pain for our firefighting heroes. It can become quite the issue later on, but it's never a large enough problem for me to stop playing. The Rangers are also able to swim, and I can right away say that the swimming portions are perhaps the worst parts of this game. The controls underwater feel incredibly imprecise and limited, with slippy manoeuvres and a boost function that just throws you into the floor to make up for the complete lack of control you otherwise have on your altitude. To make matters worse, the camera has a bloody aneurysm during these sections. And so, what happens when you've got crappy swimming mechanics? You set the second level in a sodding aquarium, meaning there's water everywhere. Great. In the game itself, the HUD shows time, crystals collected, and has this bar and a graph. From what I can gather, whenever the bar's full, a metric ton of explosions are triggered for a few seconds in your area. The graph represents the damage done to the place you're trying to save. If the limit number below it reaches 100%, then you're finished. Keeping the limit down is easy, just put out fire and watch it shoot back down. In terms of levels, you get 4, not counting the tutorial. That may not sound like much, because it's not, but your mileage with burning ranges isn't likely to be as short as that number suggests. For one, each level can easily break into being nearly half an hour long, and much longer if you plan on finding and saving everyone. Also, once the game is complete, the stages, or more the people you find in the stages and where you find them, become randomly generated. If you intend on filling out your rescue record, showing everyone you've saved, you'll be playing Burning Rangers for a long time. Also unlocked after beating the game is a password feature. This is nifty in that some passwords actually let you play as the other Rangers, such as Big and Chris. To top this off, using passwords to access stages results in the game's main theme, Angels with Burning Hearts, playing as you race through the Inferno. Awesome! In terms of an options menu, besides the control setting, there's pretty much nothing. You do get a sound test, which is cool, but that's the only nifty feature here. Saving people from the blaze may also result in them sending an email to the Rangers, which you can view from the menu in the rescue record. A few familiar faces show up too, such as Clarice and Elliot from Nights into Dreams, and Yuji Naka. I can't read Japanese, but I'm pretty sure I recognise the word Sonic in his email. I've read that saving Naoto Oshima nets you a picture of Sonic, but I've never seen it. There's actually a decent bit of Sonic Team fan service in this game, such as the third level having areas named after stages from Knights and Sonic, such as the Green Hill Lounge. It's small things, but it's nice to see regardless. As I mentioned earlier, the objective of each level is to race through the burning building you've been assigned to, rescuing hostages and putting out fires along the way. Each hostage has to be teleported out of the building using 5 crystals each. Sometimes you'll come to a specific person that will trigger a cutscene seemingly furthering the plot of the level. In stage 3 you actually become unable to teleport a young boy called Neil Belmondo out of the blaze, and so you just sling him over your shoulder and charge through a mountain of explosions like an absolute badass. Definitely a memorable moment. Besides fire and explosions, there is little in the way of enemies. Robots play the part of regular stage enemies. Either you'll show up against huge hulks of metal, or these annoying flying things that show up out of nowhere at the worst of times. Of course, at the end of each stage is a boss fight, and they're definitely one of the weakest parts of the game, gameplay wise. The first boss is fair enough. It's a giant plant that shoots fire. Fun fact, it also showed up in Shadow the Hedgehog's Prison Island level. The second boss is a cybernetic fish thing. Hang on a sodding minute, that's Gulpo from Nights into Dreams. No, seriously, the resemblance can't be a coincidence, and honestly it probably isn't, given this is a Sonic Team game who, you know, made Nights. Still, I find this quite amusing during my first playthrough. The third boss is this crystal thing that constructs a body for itself out of junk, and the fourth stage has a few bosses. Ah yes, the fourth bloody stage. In this stage you basically enter the place where Rie is being held in an attempt to rescue her from stasis and stop the space colony plummeting into Earth. This place is a bit of a gauntlet, as you don't really fight fires in it, it's just a case of get where you need to be. The first part can be a pain in the arse since the camera tends to screw about a lot, particularly in the underwater section, and the huge platforming section can be a pain in the arse too, though it's nice to be able to stretch your legs with the ranger's versatile moveset in an open space. There's a boss at the end of this section, and then comes probably my most hated section of this entire game. Suddenly, you're plunged into a cutscene showing the ranger's spaceship, and then, suddenly the game becomes a friggin' shoot 'em up. Well, perhaps I'm getting ahead of myself. After all, Sega's put out some great shoot-em-ups in the past. Surely this would be just like those. Not one damn bit. If you're expecting something as fun as Space Harrier, put those thoughts to rest. This section can go and fuck itself. The control is incredibly awkward as you control not only your direction left and right, but your altitude. This can cause the fast-moving stage to become disorientating as you try and manoeuvre past the obstacles the game throws at you. If that wasn't bad enough, the game follows the crystal setup of the normal gameplay, so dying in this section can be easier than you'd think, especially with the aforementioned control issues. And if you die in this section, kiss goodbye to one of your continues. To rub salt in the wound, if you die you have to watch the 30-second long intro to the section all over again, and it's not even skippable. I could go for a piss in the time this takes. If you get a game over, back to the start of stage 4, as in beat the first part with the annoying water section, see out that bloody platforming section again, kill the boss, and then you can try the spaceship section again. Perhaps just to spite people, you can actually unlock this section to play separately from stage 4 at any time from the main menu. What poor git would go through this shit voluntarily? Anyway, once that's done, the Rangers rescue Aria and teleport her out of the station, and then it begins to collapse. Cue final boss, and it's a dragon? What? I mean, okay, giant cybernetic fishes and Audrey from the Little Shop of Horrors with a flamethrower aren't exactly the most amazing bosses, but suddenly a dragon. Yeah. And after all you've travelled, the final boss is an absolute pushover, just like every other boss in this game. For some reason, every boss just feels like a joke here. Whenever they attack you, it's easy to dodge, and basically all you have to do is put them full of charge shots until they're dead. The only one that gave me too much bother was ironically the first boss, as landing an accurate shot on its weak point is a pain in the arse. The stages aren't really too challenging, with the exception of the final stage and its bloody spaceship section. I can't really recall continuing more than once, and I never got any game overs. The explosion frenzy triggered by the bar at the top can be annoying to dodge when it happens, but it's still a nifty mechanic. After each stage, you're ranked in a similar way to Nights into Dreams, and you get the option of retrying the stage or quitting the game. The rankings shown can actually be quite useful for, showing you how to improve your score specifically, and it's a nice touch. It shows you how many civilians you rescued and everything, so you know exactly where to improve next time you play the level. Graphics wise, it's a mixed bag. The game uses quite a lot of nice 3D effects such as light sourcing and transparency, and on the whole for a 3D Saturn game it looks pretty damn nice. However, in the technical aspect of the graphics the game suffers quite a bit. Popping can be a bit of an issue, especially in the already irritating spaceship level, and the polygons flickering and glitching out is incredibly frequent, even when you're not moving. Also at times the stages don't really stand out and can begin looking really cluttered, making navigating through them a bit of a pain. Still, the character models and general animations are pretty good, and overall, it's a decent looking game. Some aesthetic recognition has got to go to the wonderful anime-style cutscenes that play during the intro for the game and after each level, as well as the credits. These were animated by Studio Boomerang according to the credits, and from what I can gather, they help with Akira. I know nothing about anime or anything like that, but even I know how big of a deal Akira is. The voice acting is of course in Japanese, so I can't really judge it on that front. It sounds okay in my opinion, and the people you save are decently acted and have clear emotion put into their performances, though a few get slightly annoying, particularly the ones who are up in tears and everything. Tillis can also get quite annoying on a few occasions, particularly when you select her and she screams "Hi" at you. Musically, it's again a mixed bag. On one hand, there's actually little music during gameplay, you only hear it during specific sections, cutscenes or during boss battles. However, what music is here is bloody awesome. So awesome in fact, that the Japanese version even comes with a mini disc sampler with the game's free vocal tracks on it. The vocal tracks are pretty good. Angels with Burning Hearts is my absolute favourite. We Are Burning Rangers is great and actually got remixed for Sonic and All-Stars Racing Transformed, and I Just Smile actually got reused in Blink's The Time Sweeper on the Xbox. To be fair, that game was actually made by the creator of Burning Rangers and by extension Sonic the Hedgehog. Well then. The other musical pieces are great too, and the boss themes are actually dynamic, changing as you whir down the boss. This is an awesome addition and it adds to the excitement of fighting the bosses, which it really needs given fighting the bosses is boring as hell. Overall, solid on the soundtrack front. Overall, Burning Rangers is what I would call a good game. It's got mostly solid controls, a great soundtrack and an original premise, because hey, space firefighters! The graphical flourishes are pretty great and they make up somewhat for the otherwise rather weak graphical output of this title. The game's got high replay value too thanks to the rank system and the random level generation, as well as the task of filling out your rescue record. The game is let down slightly by the awkward camera and the poor water segments and just plain bad boss battles, but these issues don't detract enough to make me want to stop playing the game. I cannot stress enough that if you find an affordable English copy, go for it. It'll make your experience far more comfortable with regards to navigating the levels. The only reason I could recommend the Japanese version is for the nifty soundtrack sampler, and as good as the vocal tracks are, I'd prefer the game to be understandable instead of getting free music tracks on a disc. Don't get me wrong, Burning Rangers is not important friendly, and hell, I made it through the game just fine. But to get speedrunning the levels or understanding the story, you will need the English version's voice acting, or just go on Wikipedia or TV tropes or something, I don't care. Sadly, after Burning Rangers, Sonic Team kind of stopped making all these wonderful creative titles and just stuck to making Sonic. Okay, I say that, but we actually did get a few more original titles out of them, such as Choo Choo Rocket, Samba de Amigo and Phantasy Star Online. In recent times, though, original IPs from Sonic Team are non-existent. We got a few sequels, like Knight's Journey of Dreams, but they're mostly just there. In fact, I think Journey of Dreams in particular is a steaming pile of shit and does not deserve whatsoever to bear the Knight's name. I'm going off on a tangent, aren't I? Point is, Burning Rangers is a creative marvel from the folks at Sonic Team, and even with the flaws it has, I easily recommend it to any Saturn owner wanting a good 3D action game. Thanks for watching this episode of This Is Saturn. I'm sorry it took so long, I've just been incredibly busy with college and the like, and all this other stuff that's been happening lately. I'll see you next time when we gear up for some good old-fashioned mech battling in Virtual On. See you then.